Hello and welcome to Antinatalism this week. Jaggi Vasudev, also known as Sadguru, is an Indian mystique, godman, and one of those gurus who have large following. Sadguru has previously supported the festival of Jallikattu in southern India, which involves torturing and taming bulls for fun. I am not a personal fan of this man, but he has spoken in favor of women not having kids in the past. He has one daughter, and recently on a podcast called PBD Podcast, he spoke about having her as a mistake. The entire podcast is just under 2 hours long, but there are clips of relevant parts on another channel, and I'll put the link of that in the description. Here's what he had to say.
Why one kid?
I said only one mistake I make, I never repeat my mistakes.
Is that really why?
Actually, I never wanted to have children, but my wife said she felt that she may feel that she has missed that experience of having a child. So I said, okay. Now my daughter decided not to have children.
So, your wife wanted to have a child. She wanted to experience the process of birthing a child, and therefore, you created an entire human being. Not only that, but a large section of men follow you and would feel vindicated by this action. I also could not see any remorse on Sadhguru's face about the mistake that he admits to have made. When probed further, he deviates from the question.
Why didn't you want children?
Hmm?
Why didn't you want children?
I had a lot to do and everybody's mine. All the people who are with me, they are more than my children.
But you didn't want to have more kids? You didn't want to have 5, 10 kids?
I have millions of them.
But your own blood, that didn't do anything for you as a man growing up, that you wanted more kids?
It's up to you whether you have children of your blood or of your spirit.
It is a fashion in India for social workers, godmen, mystique, etc., to say that the whole society is their children or family. This is deception. This is playing on an ambiguity of the term having children. You can figuratively say that you have millions of children who look up to you as a father figure and so on, but that's not what the host was asking you. He was asking in literal sense. This is also why I struggle to be a fan of these godmen. They tend to give unclear answers under the guise of being deep. Anyway, the host of this podcast has 4 children and he asks a really loaded question.
So what do you think is the biggest accomplishment in a man's life? You hear different proverbs, will say a man should do 3 things in his lifetime: have a child, plant a tree, write a book. What do you think is the biggest accomplishment for a man?
How ridiculous this question is. Sadhguru does not refute this question directly, and the conversation goes in environmental and population concerns, but the question is loaded with assumptions. First, he uses the term men. Having a child is the biggest accomplishment of a man. Maybe he either meant as a male or a human being. If he meant it as a male, then this is just masculinity. This is either Andrew Tate grade of achievement, impregnating a woman as being the greatest achievement, or feeling a sense of masculinity as a provider of the family. Satisfaction of raising children and providing for them can give a sense of meaning, but creating them in order to provide for them is circular logic. However, if you meant it as a human being, like having children is a great accomplishment for being human, then this is questionable. Other animals do that just like us. So, what's so special in creating your copies? Having functional genitals is not an accomplishment. Anyway, the rest of the conversation goes in other direction. I don't think both the host or Sadhguru know about the arguments for antinatalism. Tarrant County College is a college in Texas. Texas is generally a conservative state in the US, so it was surprising to see an article on this college's website, "I never want to have kids, so stop saying I will change my mind," by its managing editor, Rayleigh Roper. The title might suggest it's just about being child-free, but it actually is about antinatalism. It's a short and sweet article. Rayleigh, who is the author of this article, actually wanted to have a child, but as she says, "I cannot fathom the idea of bringing a precious soul into this sick and twisted world." She criticizes the way the world is. We can have politicians who are pedophiles, who can go to war for their own selfish gains. The education system is broken, and so how can we bring someone into this world? Is a question she asks. She also gives her own background of growing up in a lower middle class family and her parents working hard to provide for their three children. Surprisingly, her mother also agrees with her decision to not have children. I get it, she said. If I had known that the world would have ended up like this, I wouldn't have had children myself. Rayleigh says that if the situation improves, then maybe she can think of raising children by adopting them rather than creating new ones. I would much rather help someone that is already born and forced to live in this cruel world than create a baby who will suffer the same fate. We have a child-free news from Malta, which is a southern European country experiencing declining fertility rates similar to its neighbors. A paper from the University of Malta, Choosing Child-Free: The Experiences of Women in Malta, presents a qualitative study of child-free women. By qualitative, I mean interviews observing lived experiences of child-free women rather than just statistics. It has interviews of 15 women aged over 35 from Malta who have decided not to have any children. Findings show that decisions to remain child free stem from enduring self awareness, careful reflection, and a desire to maintain autonomy rather than from rejection of children or motherhood. In other words, they don't hate children and they don't conform to what society tells them to do either. But that does not stop the larger society from putting pressure on them. Although participants described fulfilling their lives without regret, their accounts also revealed persistent normative pressure, subtle stigma, and gendered expectations framing motherhood as compulsory and child free lives as deviant. Vox.com has an editorial question and answer section in which they answered whether poor people should have children or not. Am I too poor to have a baby? Is a question asked by someone who is struggling financially with their business, already has a few children, and wants to decide whether to have yet another child while also being on state welfare. The editor, Siegel Samuel, gives a very poor answer to this, although some of the conclusions I agree with. She says if our moral principle is you need X dollars to responsibly reproduce, then we are committed to saying that most of humanity across most of history and most of the present day world has been acting immorally by having families. Enslaved people, colonized people, people in poverty today, all immoral, just for responding to one of nature's strongest biological drives? Absurd. Well, most humanity across most of history kept on having children in the face of a very high infant mortality rate. Most humanity kept on having children despite horrific living conditions, despite wars, despite plagues and diseases, despite grave injustices, especially on women. So, yes, it was immoral. Racism, sexism, casteism, speciesism, tribalism has been the norm of most of humanity across most of its history. If we are to derive our morals from what most humanity did in the past, then you would not be living the privileged life that you are. In fact, Siegel Samuel herself would not even be the editor of a prominent news website. This is clearly appeal to ancestors. Secondly, she refers to reproduction as responding to nature's strongest drive. I have doubts if this is the case. I agree that sexual desires are natural and children have been consequences of fulfillment of these desires. But the desire to have children in itself, that I'm not sure whether it is natural choice or societal conditioning or a mix of the two. Also, there are many other natural lives that are not acceptable in a civilized society. For example, aggression is not seen as a good thing in itself. So, there being a natural drive within us to have children does not provide us with enough reason to have them. The answer is decorated with many fallacies like these to justify something which is unjustifiable. Now, one thing I agree with her is that people should not be restricted from procreation only on the basis of their financial condition. Where I don't agree with her is she's advocating for poor people also to have children. We all know that rich people suffer as well. The King of England recently had cancer, and although it was cured, thankfully, it shows that suffering spares no one, rich or poor. It might vary in degrees, but it happens to everyone. So, no, you should not have children whether you are poor or rich. Finally, Lawrence made a video responding to Hank Green. I like Hank Green, who has done very good science communication videos, and he and his brother do very good work. But Hank, while talking about moon in the light of the latest Artemis flight around it, said that moon is dead, implying it is bad than how it is on Earth. He also said that the moon is wonderful because it is wonderful to us, and that in turn is because we exist, and talked a bunch of optimistic things about it. Lawrence responds to all three of these points one by one, so it was interesting to listen to. And thanks to Lawrence for taking down the fluffy talk, which seeps even through scientists' mouths at times, as it does through godmen's and mystics' mouths like Sadguru.